Welcome to lesson 2 of week 4, and we're going to jump into solving two-step equations. Again, we're going to use the algebraic properties of equality, which we learned in the last lesson, but this time we're going to solve two-step equations. So let's get started. Here's an example of a two-step equation. What makes it a two-step equation? Well, it's got two operations on the left-hand side or on the side that involves the variable. So if you look at it, we've got -5 being multiplied by x. But then we also have 17 being added. So we've got two operations going on. Last lesson, it was pretty easy to get x by itself. It was one operation. We just undid that. This one, well, what do we do first? Let's take a look. Well, when we're doing two-step equations, or any equation for that matter, we kind of undo the order of operations. The order of operations was used to put things together. When we're solving for x, we're undoing that. We're taking things apart. We're moving the equation around. So we think PEMDAS with the order of operations, right? Well, when we're solving equations, we kind of start at the end at S, or addition and subtraction, and move towards the parentheses. All right. So let's do a few examples. So we've got x divided by 3 plus 9 equals -5. Well, we've got division and we've got addition going on with x. We need to undo those in the correct order. So PEMDAS says we start at the end, right? So addition and subtraction, well, we have an addition there. So we need to take care of that addition first. Well, the inverse operation of +9 is -9. And the subtraction property of equality says we need to subtract 9 from both sides. So we got to subtract 9 from the right side as well. And what that does is it gives me x over 3, or x divided by 3, equals -14. Now I have division, and to undo division, I'm going to multiply. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 3 to get my x by itself, because the 3's divide to 1, and 1 times x is just x. And -14 times 3 is -42. And there we've solved our first two-step equation. Example 2. Tricky one here. Looks like a one-step equation, but in reality, we've got -1 in front of that x. So it's -1 times x minus 12. So we've got multiplication and subtraction going on. So the first thing we want to do is take care of the subtraction. So we have to add 12. The inverse operation is to add 12 to both sides. Well, that leaves me with -x equals 48. But I don't want -x. I want positive x. So how do I get rid of that negative? Well, think back to one of the properties we learned a few weeks ago, the multiplication property of -1. What that said was if I multiply anything by -1, it changes its sign. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply -x by -1. But the multiplication property of equality says I got to do that to the other side as well. And what that does is it changes my sign from -x to positive x. And 48 times -1 is -48. 1 times x is just x. So we've solved this equation for x. And the last example here, we've got -8, or subtract 8, plus 2/3 x equals 4. Well, I'm going to undo the subtraction, or the negative, first. So I'm going to add 8 to both sides. That leaves me with 2/3 x on the left. 4 plus 8 is 12. Now, we've got a fraction here. I could do this in 2 steps. I could undo the dividing by 3 by multiplying by 3, but that would leave me with 2x. And then I would have to divide by 2. So think back to what I just said. Multiply by 3, and then divide by 2. Well, I'm going to show you a little shortcut here. I could multiply both sides by 3 over 2. As long as you're multiplying by a real number, and 3 over 2 is a real number, multiplication property of equality works. Now, why do I multiply by 3 over 2? Well, you can see that the 3's, 1 3 on top, 1 3 on the bottom. Those 3's cancel. I also see a 2 on the top and a 2 on the bottom. Those 2's cancel. Everything cancels to 1. And then I have 1 over 1 times x, which is just x. Well, then I have to do 12 times 3 and 1, right? 12 is like 12 over 1. And 1 times 2, so 12 times 3 is 36. 1 times 2 is 2. 36 divided by 2 gives me my 18. And that is the end of this lesson, solving two-step equations. The last lesson of this week will be multi-step equations.